Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. We're getting ready to do the graining in the wood grain part of the tutorial. And what we're going to be using in this video is a small round brush. And it's not very big, as you can see, but it's not a pointed brush either. It kind of flares out a little bit. That's what we're shooting for. And there's another brush that they call a fan brush. You can use it. I think you can get it for watercolors and acrylics and things like that. But it's a brush and it comes up and it fans out, and the bristles are randomly spaced apart on it. That works good for graining also. But we're going to do more of a dry brushing technique here on this one. And what I'm going to be using is the XF79, and this is linoleum deck brown. It's a little bit darker brown than any tone that we've used on there so far. And I'm just going to use this straight out of the bottle. This has not been thinned at all. And we're going to open this up. And usually for this technique, what I do is just shake the bottle up real good, and then I just set the cap down like that, and I will use out of the cap itself. And of course, I have a piece of cloth over here that I'm going to wipe the excess off once I load the brush. And I'm just loading about halfway up the bristles on the brush. And then I'm coming in and I want to wipe the majority of that off. And then I'm just going to come in on our body. And since the graining is going this way on some of these ribs, I just want to come in and lightly grain that. And like I say, it does take a little bit of practice to do this, especially with how much paint you leave on the brush and not getting things too bold and, out of scale or anything like that. So just practice with it. I mean, it's fun to do. It puts a little bit of streaking in the finish, and it will definitely make it look like a piece of wood grain, but it does take some practice. I will be the first to admit, first time I ever tried it, it was a ridiculous looking mess. I had more of a mess than I had wood grain. So it takes a little bit to learn the procedures on how to do it, but I think, with some practice and when you're done, you can make it look real good. And you can vary, how hard you push down on the brush, just like any other dry brushing process. All you're trying to do is put some streaks in it. And I'm trying to, on my horizontal panels, I'm trying to keep the graining going that way. And you can also go down in your recesses now and do a little bit of, you can press a little bit harder and put a little bit of graining down in those using this technique. And like I say, the main thing is just to have fun. Now, somebody did send me a PM, and I forgot to mention this when I got started on these on the wood graining series. They asked me if I was going to do the exterior parts of the body with the same color that I did the interior. And that was actually a real good question. Not only am I doing a what you could call a different color on the exterior, I'm also doing it in a different procedure. And that's just to show a couple different ways of doing it. I've already showed the one, and anybody that tries that, give that a whirl. That'll give you an option to work with, but that may not be for everybody. And then this one here is also another option, and this may not be for everybody. So, I'm giving you the two ways that I pretty much go about doing a wood graining pattern. And if neither one of them work for you, then that's cool. Maybe you can pick up something that you see that go, hey, wait a minute, I can do that a little bit different and, make it come out better for me or, whatever. And that's good. That's what we're shooting for. But no, I'm not going to be doing the same color on the exterior that I did on the interior. And the reason why is I'm a big fan of, color coordination and stuff like that. On a model, you know, and on the interior, I was trying to get something that worked well with the brown that we were using, the tan that we used on the interior, the wooden deck tan. And on this exterior, I'm trying to get it to work with the racing white and also the purple. So, you know, I'm trying to do something that's going to blend for both of those color schemes. And I didn't want to do everything because, like I say, what's in the back of this car, you will not see it. If you shine a pin light or something in there, you may see it, but it's going to be difficult to see that. So this is going to be the main wood graining pattern that you're going to see on the car. So that's what we're going to stick with. But like I say, just you know, I don't want anybody to think that this is the only way you can do it, or you know, whatever, because that is not the case. I mean, there is so many different ways to do this technique. You just have to give it a shot, and like I say, see what works for you. See which way you want to go about doing it, and practice a little bit. And some people may not like the technique at all. They may not go, oh, I don't want to do wood grain. And at that point, you have another option. This particular kit and several other kits out there come with wood grain decals. And they pretty much look like a piece of wood that's printed on a decal. And you water slide them off the paper and put them into place, and you're done. I have used decals before. I have some from Yushi out of the UK, and I think it's UK or Germany or somewhere like that. And they are very, very nice decals. They're very in scale and just a wonderful thing to work with. Very, very thin, so they do take a little bit of getting used to. But like I say, I mean, there's just so many different ways you can go about doing it. Doing the paint technique may not be for everybody, and that's, you know, perfectly understandable. I just don't want anybody thinking that, oh, this is the only way you can do it because it's my way. And it's like, no, that's not true. You know, my way might not work for 90% of the people out there, but at least in this video, I'm showing the way that I do it. If somebody sees one of my builds in competition or whatever, you know, this is basically the procedures that I'm using to create a wood grain pattern. So again, we're just I'm streaking with, you know, whichever way the wood I want the wood to lay as far as the graining. You can come in and get particular on like your divisions where the wood would be divided. Like back here in the back, you could add in a panel where it looks like it's actually divided and separate pieces of wood. That's something that you can do. Nothing wrong with that. And now I'm just really dry brushing. And the next thing that I will do is come in just to tone things down and blend them in a little bit and not make them quite as stark. Is I'll come in with a little bit wider of a brush with just a little bit of water in it. And I will pretty much dry brush with that. And water doesn't affect Tamiya paint a lot unless you get it real wet, but it does tend to move it around a little bit, and that's kind of what we're after in this step right here. You could actually come in with a little, very, very little bit of rubbing alcohol and do the same thing. But we're just going to rub this down, and actually with the water, you can tone it down a little bit and create some more streaking and staining, and you know, you can create some pretty wild effects by doing this. And I got my water over here, so I got to dip back in that water again. We're going to go around here on the back. I got to tone this down a little bit here, blend that in. Again, being very subtle with this. And, you know, right now it'll look a little stark with the graining because we don't have the overcoat over it yet. And what I'm doing now is just kind of scrubbing the two colors, or the color that we just put on, back and forth, and, you know, getting things to blend a little bit. Sometimes you can scrub in, you know, across the grain and you can take a little bit of the graining out. So just, like I say, you just got to practice with it and do what you think looks right. I mean, just because one person does wood grain doesn't make it right. And you don't have to follow that exact procedure. Do what you think looks good. That's the best advice I can give on just about anything on a model. Unless you're, talking about competition or something like that. I can help you out tremendously when it comes to competition because that's my game. That's, what I enjoy in the hobby. And I build models, not this particular model, but I am, mainly I build models for competing. And I build models that when I'm taking them to a show, I'm pretty confident that they're going to do well. Sometimes they don't, and other times they surprise me and do very well. So, but for the average everyday person out there, just building for themselves and enjoying the hobby, you can do this any way you want to. You don't have to impress anybody. You don't have to follow anybody's procedure to a T. You do what works for you. So there we go. We have that all kind of brushed down and greened in and all that happy stuff. And I'm going to go back in. I got one little spot on. I got a little bit too much water on this side here. So I'm going to tone this down just a little bit more by taking this piece of cloth and going over the surface in the direction of the grain. And as you can see, we're not taking very much off. You can see that little bit on the cloth there. All we're doing is just making it a little bit more subtle, toning it down. And that's about it. So we're going to let this dry up. We'll come back, and in the next episode, we're going to be spraying the clear yellow across this. So stay tuned for that one. Like always, I want to thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.